Welcome to the Gabe Gallucci Golf Show.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 1 of the Gabe Gallucci Golf Podcast. I'm your host, Gabe Gallucci. Guys, I'm so excited launching my podcast. This is something I've been wanting to do for a while. I've been making golf content for the past couple years, documenting my golf journey. And, being a music producer, audio is home base for me. And so I thought, you know what? It's time to launch a podcast because I also want to be able to document the journey a little bit better. And I think, being able to tell my golf stories and talk to great people and get interviews and do all that, I think it would be much better in this format. So I'm really, really excited to launch this podcast. With that, I've brought along one of my best friends, my boy Dave. He is here to help keep me in check because sometimes I like to get a little off the rails. So not only will he help doing that in this podcast, but he has also been doing that throughout the past 4 years of this golf journey. So meet one of my golf handlers and one of my best friends, Dave.
Hey everybody, nice to be here. Thanks for that introduction, Gabe. I feel that is that's an appropriate summary of our relationship. Best friends. I'm also here to control the lunacy, shall we say, at times.
Yeah.
Not to say you haven't held me in check over the past few years as well. I can go off the deep end. But yeah, no, I am. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's been a lot of fun the last few years to watch your golf game evolve. So happy to chat about stuff. It's going to be good. Going to chat about your game. Going to chat about the game in general. Some of the equipment woes you and I have had, good and bad, over the course of the past few years. So I'm excited for this. It'll be great.
That's why I know Dave's going to be the best co-host is that, he and I go through very similar yet different things because of how we approach the game. I'm very much like full-time golf is what I'm trying to make a career out of. And Dave is very much like golf is an outlet and it's an area of happiness. But at the same time, he is very dedicated to being dialed in, having his gear right, having his technique right. And despite how little you actually get to play, you are by far the most consistent golfer I know when it comes, because you have a full-time job. Like you're have a very successful career outside of golf, but managed to kind of keep your golf game rocking and rolling.
Well, you're 70 hours a week on golf, and I'm 70 hours a week on a career with golf fitted in between, right? But I mean, I think the other thing that'll be great for the listeners, like you and I approach the game so differently. Totally. So you come at this game with 125 mile an hour club head speed on your driver. I'm a little bit older, had some surgeries, have some bionic parts, shall we say, some metal through various parts of the body.
You're like the Terminator.
So I'm cruising at 100 miles an hour on my driver swing speed. So you and I often have great discussions about the difference, like what works for you at 125 when you're cruising and what works for me and how that relates to our game is so different.
Totally.
Yeah, it's just that's actually the funnest part of our rambles back and forth for me is like while we play the same game, we play a different game too.
Totally. But it's interesting where, certain techniques and things can cross over and like hitting certain shots and how you approach them. I really like that. And I think when it comes to how we talk about gear and how we look at the game, those kind of duality of perspectives will be a lot of fun. And that's really what I want to get out of this podcast too, is to, showcase how many things I've learned over the past couple years of going through my golf journey, going from, basically a 10 handicap of January 2020 to shooting under par within 8 months, which was a challenge I gave to myself. And did that with no coach, no nothing, right? And there's so much learning that's happened in that period. But then for the past couple years after that, I've now tried to transition into becoming a professional golfer. And the ups and downs of that process has been crazy. And so, the music industry is bullshit. But what I like about golf, it's very merit-based and it's a lot more straightforward. The ball's in your court. And I think we're going to be able to showcase a lot of the good learnings and help people kind of weed through, because there is bullshit in the golf world too, right? And I think we can help people maybe shorten their journeys of improvement and get better.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I think today, like the majority of our listeners are going to probably follow you on YouTube. They're going to know your story. But there's going to be some people that go, who is this Gabe guy? What's the deal here? What is he talking about, the journey? You know, I think for the first pod here, it'd be good for the listeners to like, what is the 5-minute, 6-minute summary of your golf journey over the past 4 or 5 years, the ups and downs, and what have you gone through? I think that's a great starting point here.
So the Coles Notes or Spark Notes version, is Coles Notes even a thing anymore? I think the kids are all like on ChatGPT now. They don't even need it.
Yeah, I would question how many kids. I don't think even kids. I found the other day kids don't do cursive writing. So
No, my cousins don't do that in school.
Yeah,
They're 13, 14. There's no cursive. Yeah. Anyway,
this isn't an English lit podcast. This is a golf podcast. So let's move on.
We'll do the ChatGPT version. So essentially, when I was 14 years old, I had to choose between golf and drums, and I chose drums, obviously, and made music my full time. Like, this is what I want to do with my life, and I've spent all of my 20s in a recording studio making music full time. And I went from basically at 18 years old, not even knowing how to plug in an RCA cable, to within 5 years of that, having a platinum selling credit on an album with Shawn Mendes, and did stuff for Disney. I have hundreds of millions of streams, just like music ended up becoming my full time, and all primarily self-taught. So, taking that, the music industry is bullshit. It is not a fair business. It is not an objective business. And by 2019, I just got so fed up with that. And I hated the lack of merit, and I hated the moving the goalposts and all that. And it seems like every wall I could run into, I did in 2019. And I found that when I would get sad in life, and this happened previously, golf would kind of reemerge. Golf would just kind of like show up. And, in 2015, I had a similar thing where I was working on some stuff, and then I started playing more golf, and then music took over again, and I kind of didn't touch golf again. And by the time I was 28, I'd played probably less than 100 rounds my whole life, but I still love golf. It was always something I wanted to do, but it didn't make sense with music. It's tough to leave the studio for 4 hours and go play. It didn't work with my life. Anyway, and 2019 comes. I've been watching a lot of YouTubers while I was working in the studio, because I can edit drums and edit vocals and do all that without having to actually look at having to actually listen. You can just do a lot of it visually, and then you listen to it and you do touch ups. So I would have all the golf YouTubers on all day in the studio while I'm editing, while I'm working on stuff.
The Rick Shields, the Mark Crossfield, those guys. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody, and saw what they were doing. I've done a lot of work with YouTubers. I understand the mechanics of running a YouTube channel. And I thought, I needed a different personal challenge for myself. And I wanted something that was objective. And I loved golf. I still love golf. But I knew that it was something, if I applied that same level of discipline that I have in music to an objective medium, how far could I take it, right? If I can go from not knowing how to plug in an RCA cable to platinum selling record, what happens if I do this, right? And so January 2020, I decided, okay, I'm going to take from now until October 1st to see if I can shoot under par. And I was a 10 handicap at the time, roughly. I never tracked a handicap. So by estimation, through some rounds I played with friends and things like that, that was the guess we had made at the time. And I was able to shoot under par by September. And that is with COVID kind of coming in and throwing a wrench into everything. So from basically May 16th to the beginning of September was when I was playing 36 holes a day like an absolute lunatic. Never had a golf lesson, nothing.
So you went from 100 rounds in your life to 100 rounds in a year.
So I calculated it out. I forget the number, but I played over almost 300 rounds in 2020 because I spend my winters in BC because of my girlfriend. So I didn't know that in Canada. I didn't know that in Canada. Yeah. So 300 rounds in 2020. And I think in Canada, you can play golf 365 in British Columbia. I'm from Ontario, but I started doing my winters in British Columbia. And so I was there at the beginning of 2020, played a couple rounds, went back for a wedding, got stuck because of COVID, and then had to come back to Ontario anyway, so I was already there. But then I was 36 holes a day, and then at the end of the fall, I came to BC and kept playing. So I think it was
I just checked the USJ app. I had 17 in 2020.
Nice.
So
nice. But that's what I mean. I went full. I like to joke. I went full golf cocaine mode. Because there was nothing else to do. Like my music business was all at home, and this was the first time too. Like I'm used to working in studios, so I always had a studio, and I was always have to go to a studio. So that takes up so much of your day. Well, now I was doing everything at home, so I could wake up super early, go play, come back, work, and then go play a twilight round, and it was the best schedule, and there was nothing else to do because of COVID. So it was amazing. So that was the end of that.
I was going to say, they always talk about, though, the hardest handicap move. So you took it from a 10 to a 5. I think we've all done that. Not we've all done that, but that's something a lot of people can relate to. And then the 5 to the scratch, the 5 to the +1 is the hurdle that many golfers struggle with, because the effort it takes to do that is exponential. And listen, I've been there. Like I sit at a 7. I mean, I've been as low as a 3.4, but in order to keep that is like insane. And I think for you though, sit at a 7.
Yeah, but I think for you, it's just a function of not playing. You could be lower if you played more, based on skill.
But the amount of effort that like you made those improvements, and this is where I find your golf game interesting. Like you made those improvements to get from a 5 to a +1 in basically 3.5 months. Yeah. And I wonder, and we're going to get into this probably later in podcasts, but you did that with the sole focus of playing golf. And then, you talk about where you and I have gone the last few years. And as we get distracted by what's the new iron, what's the new driver, what's the new golf shaft, right? I wonder how much those distractions for us and for the regular consumer, inhibit our ability to get better. So like how much time have you and I spent the last 3 or 4 years focused on equipment rather than just playing golf and getting better just playing golf?
Yeah.
Because to me, that's what the 2020 Gabe did, is he played golf and he learned how to play and he just got better.
Yeah. I learned how to play a specific lane of golf, though, and I think this is what I think what I've learned through this, because getting to that point, right? I definitely thought I was better than I was, and I think my golf game was overinflated for what it actually was capable of doing, simply because of how I had figured out a way to bunt it around very effectively. Yeah. Like I hit exclusively these like choke down fades with the driver, and with the irons, like I fade, like there was never a draw. I couldn't hit a draw. It was like I came over the top. I had a terrible swing, terrible mechanics, but I could come over the top. I generated enough speed somehow, and I've always been decently long. And I've just built a very repeatable game for the amateur weekend player. I think that's where it's the difference. It's like yes, my handicap was a +1, but I was not a tournament +1 by any means. But I was a weekend warrior +1, and I'd found just a very like easy way to bunt it around.
That reminds me, I think that's fair. It reminds me of I want to say it's an old Golf Digest Lee Trevino quote. But I remember Trevino saying, and I'm paraphrasing, but it was basically like, there's 1,000 golfers that can shoot 68 on a Saturday. There's less than 10 that can shoot 68 consistently for 4 rounds. Right.
And I didn't have, and that's what I learned. So now at the end of that, I go from checking that box and I go, okay, I'm going to figure this out, because that was my path to improvement was basically linear, right? So then we go into Offseason 1, which is what I launched in kind of winter 2020 into 2021. And that's when I started realizing, coming out to BC for the winter, that I needed to make some swing changes in order to be a pro golfer. Because that was when I decided, okay, I want to see if I can go now from like good amateur to can I play professional golf tournaments, right? And so I did the George Gankis program.
If I can just pause you here too.
Yeah, hit me.
If anyone wants to look at a good video, just check out Gabe's YouTube channel. Go back to off-season number 1, and I want to say it's video 2, might be video 3, just to talk about what our man Gabe is like. There's a video of you putting in the dark at Cultus Lake that summarizes you more than I watched it again the other day. I remember watching it when it came out back then, but it's you explaining Cultus Lake, the clubhouse is in the background, and you're putting. And I want to say it probably looks like it's midnight. It's like pitch black dark.
Yeah, well, it's the because of daylight savings, right? Once the daylight savings kit hits, so we use I still do that. I use the light of the restaurant there to get reps in after dark. But I think kind of what you were saying about the time and the effort it takes to make those rapid improvements, right? That off season, I realized, okay, the swing I had wasn't going to work. And actually what made me realize it was going from Ontario golf to BC golf. And everything's so much tighter. The courses out here are all tree lined, like cut out of forests. So hitting like a 40-yard Bubba cut, there's not enough room sometimes to do it. Like you don't have the room to get your start line to even make that happen. So I quickly realized, oh no, I am not as good as I think I am. I need to figure this out. So I signed up for the George Gankis program, made a couple swing tweaks, and hit this like perfect alchemy where I was going super low with a very open face, early extended swing. I didn't know I was doing this at the time. This is me now knowing. I somehow found this sweet spot of this swing where, again, it was not good, but I knew where the ball was going, and it was like incredibly accurate. And I started shooting like under par daily. And I was like, oh my gosh, I figured it out. I am moving so fast. Everything is linear. Then we had a snowstorm in like February and didn't hit balls for a week because I couldn't. There's nowhere to go. Come back, and all of a sudden the swing started to deteriorate and the game started to deteriorate. And because the swing got a little bit better. The swing wasn't actually deteriorating. The swing was actually getting better. My body was getting better. I was working out like a madman. All of that started happening. I started losing that sweet spot of magic, and the scores started to fall, and I started to go, uh-oh, what's going on? And then fast forward to that summer, played some tournaments, completely just crapped it. And I went, uh-oh, I'm not as far along as I thought. And I think you remember those phone calls. And
I do. They usually came from, I was going to say, there's a couple when you were post-tournament calling me from a McDonald's drive-thru. You
got to get the junior chickens. They're good post-game. My best tournament score was when I was there's no range to warm up. I had a junior chicken and a Diet Coke, and I rolled right in and came third. That was pretty good.
The trunk slam.
The trunk slam junior chickens. It's the play. We've since cut the junior chickens out of our life, but that was a good era. But swing wise, no, it sucked, and I sucked, and I got humbled very quickly. I was like, I didn't have many like illusions that I was like supremely good, but every day when you're rocking up to the course and you're shooting under par, you're thinking like, oh, okay, there's something here. But I realized I didn't know what I was doing. Like I was kind of freewheeling it and getting lucky. I
was going to say, how much do you contribute that to the mental game and playing in a tournament under pressure versus the actual physical mechanical swing?
Oh, it's both though. I think so. One, I was a mental case because it's the musician in me that was going, right? Like I didn't realize, like one of the things that happened was I play a lot of golf alone, right? Or I played a lot of golf with like a couple friends. I didn't realize the pace at which I played. So I play very, very fast, and tournaments were so slow, murdered me. That was like a couple shot handicap immediately playing tournaments, which I didn't account for, how slow tournament golf is. And then the other thing I didn't realize was that, I'm big on flow state and trying to get into that flow state. Because in music, once you kind of iron out all your tools and everything, you get into that flow state and you're cooking. The music just kind of happens, right? I was always trying to find that with golf. I was able to find that casually playing golf. But I realized in a tournament setting, I didn't know enough about what I was actually doing. So all of a sudden I'm presented with a shot that I've hit before, but I now mentally, I'm like, I don't know what I actually am doing. I don't know the technique well enough so that gun to my head, you're telling me to hit the shot right now. Well, I have no idea. And that was a tough pill to swallow. And so then played a couple events, like slugged through that summer of tournaments, played a couple tournaments where I actually did okay. Like I came, top 5 a couple times, but I knew like if I didn't make a drastic change, I was never going to be able to progress further than that. And so that's when I started working with my coach, Max, a ton. And Max will be on the pod at some point. Phenomenal human. But that's when I started doing the full teardown and rebuild from scratch, which also sucked because I started doing that quasi just before the Vancouver Open of 2021, which you came and saw, which I shanked every iron shot on par threes during one of the rounds. I was basically laying up on all par threes with a shank on the first day when I was Shank City. Second day, it was over by hole 3. Hole 3, par 5. Driver, smoked it. Had 174 left. Nice little smooth 7-iron. Shank it into the only patch of woods available to me. And that was the beginning of the end of my day. So
that wouldn't be McCleary. That's the other.
That's Langara.
Langara. Yeah.
Yeah. Par 3. Hole 3.
Par 5.
Yep.
Remember that?
That sucked. But that leads to kind of what the last two years have been, which is Offseason 2 and Offseason 3, which has been the complete teardown and rebuild of my golf game from scratch.
So I always think of your golf career in terms of like, aside from us talking daily, which it seems like we talk most days, I can think of your golf career as like snippets of your journey on YouTube. So Offseason 2, was that the half swings? Was that when you guys really broke it down and started like the 100 half swings a day?
So that was just before. That was basically that was when that was after the Vancouver Open when Max and I started going like we're like, you are early extending, you are like, and that's why I started shanking it, because I started like kind of half trying to fix it, and then realized that when you live in that half fixing it world of early extension, you are going to shank the crap out of it constantly. So yeah,
I think that's
the 200
a great
half
example.
swings. Yeah.
Yeah. For anyone that wants to understand or appreciate like how difficult it is to make a swing change, especially for people that have like careers or have other things going on in their lives, like myself, the amount of those 4 months and watching your dedication and what it took to ingrain new patterns in your swing, like that half swing program, it led to great results, but it just goes to show you how difficult it is to make swing changes. And for some of us that are amateurs that have careers, like I think it's in a way it was almost a lesson to be easy on ourselves, because like here's someone that's dedicated 8 hours a day to it, and the amount of effort it took you was kudos to you. I mean, you stuck with it and you pushed through it, and coming out the other side, your swing is so much better. But it was, yeah.
It's you're totally right, and like it sucked, and it made me appreciate how many times Tiger changed his swing, because it took him 2 years.
Yeah,
like when he would do a full teardown and a rebuild, it was like a 2-year window, and I didn't realize how long. Because again, when making music, nothing takes that long to adapt, right? Like I've changed my mixing style a couple times. I've changed my equipment. I went from completely analog to completely digital to hybrid to all of these things, right? I've tried all those different variations. It didn't take this long. And so I underestimated the variability of the body, right? Because I never could wake up one day and my ears couldn't mix, right? I never, like, even on like little sleep, blasting coffee and eating poorly, I could still mix a song.
yeah,
But then I realized that there was all these other holistic changes I needed to make to become an athlete and get my body to work. And so, sleep and working out and eating right and all of these things. And then, like you're saying, if you don't have time to make a swing change, the amount of reps it takes to make a swing change is absurd. And I actually feel bad for golf coaches, because the general public doesn't understand. They think one lesson is going to fix something, right? Yeah. And I realized very quickly you have to grind on that lesson for so long in order to get a certain percentage of it to work. Like this 200 half swings drill that you talk about, that is foundational. One of the greatest things that I still reap the rewards of 4 weeks. I did 200 half swings a day for 4 weeks. And that was to get rid of the early extension and to teach myself to pivot. It took me doing that to train my brain to stop early extending and to come through, right? Unless you have, that's an absurd amount of time. Now you can do it on a slower timeline, but I tell people, if you early extend and you're a casual golfer, don't fix it. You're better off, go with core strategy, yep. Play one shot shape. And that's what I learned in year one, when you're saying how did I make that jump from basically a 5 handicap to a +1 in a couple months? Well, it's just you play one shot shape, you know your limitations, and you be very efficient with your course management, and you just don't play outside yourself, right? So I'm not going to try and hit a 3-wood over water that I just know I physically can't do, right? Versus now, that changes, having the capability to do that. But
yeah. So off season, so year one we get to a +1 handicap. Off season 1 we get our reps in. Summer of year 2 there's some learning around tournament play, and that we begin the 200 half swings. So what's the focus of off season 2? Where did you go for off season 2? So
off season 2 was I need to find a way to build a swing that can play. And that's when I got introduced to Ryan Hawley to do some of the ground force work. And that was life-changing, because I had figured out some of the hand path stuff, but there was still issues with contact, low point issues, all of these things, direction issues. And so then working with Max and Ryan, I felt like it was an aha moment, because what I learned about professionals, and I think actually the difference between a professional swing and an amateur swing is their ability to use their lower body. I think a lot of amateurs have good hands, and there are some great amateur swings, but I think the differentiator between a pro and an amateur is their lower body. Because I started even watching, Max is one of the best players I've ever seen, my coach. And I would notice his impact position And again, I'm not being fluent in golf, not understanding the game or knowing much. I'm very green, right? So I'm just kind of like going off a lot of the kind of bullshit anecdotal stuff you hear and trying to absorb as much knowledge. But like, if I saw a swing on video, right, at the time, I wouldn't know what to look for. But I started to notice even with him and with better golfers, there was just this like position, this impact position. And so then when I saw Ryan and he started showing me how to properly use the ground, that entire year was spent fixing my ground forces. I saw Ryan twice and just reps. I played a couple of events. It was a total write-off year, basically, because I needed to rebuild, right? And
For sure.
Had to learn how to hold flexion in my wrists through impact, as well as rotate and keep my butt back and do all of those things. So that was what off-season 2 was, and basically season 2. Off-season 3, I thought I was closer than I was to having a swing that was viable. And because I started to be able to play better, but there was still some I always felt like there was still that 10 handicap golfer living inside of me. Like I could play really great, but then all of a sudden I could top it or I could hit it just so horrifically bad that it didn't make sense. And that was frustrating. And I realized, again, there was still more work to be done. There was still more flexibility. And that's when I started getting obsessed with hip mobility. Because if you look at my hip turn from off-season 2, I didn't turn very much. I got really strong. I put on more muscle. I got up to 190 pounds at one point. I was crushing the ball, but my turn was poor. There were still things missing. I guess it was still I thought I could, because I had speed, because I had some of those things, I thought, okay, if I chase the speed and then I can kind of clean up the short game, it'll all come together. And it didn't.
You kind of went a little bit Bryson, I want to say, with the bulk. And I don't mean that in an insult or anything. Oh, yeah. But that's kind of where we were going if people want to relate to it. And yeah, it seems like if off seasons 1 and 2 were the swing, off season 3 was the physical, how to get your body in shape.
Right, because I realized in 2, the bulk didn't work without mobility. So I was stronger I was stronger by the end. I was crushing workouts and eating and doing all that. But without the mobility aspect and the fluidity that comes with that, I realized, okay, no, I was limited. So then I started getting obsessed with hip mobility drills and making sure my lower body could turn in the way it's needed. And that has taken a full year. It's only been up until recently that my hips actually don't hurt. Because I realized once you start trying to turn, I realized how limited I was in that area. Because sitting, right? I sat in a studio for all of my 20s. And for most people, they're sitting at work. Sitting is ruining your golf swing. Because it's atrophying your core, it's making your hips tight, it's making your glutes brutal, your lower back is shot, and now you're expecting to get up on Saturday and go play and not early extend. You are going. It's almost impossible with those conditions unless you're counteracting it. And so I had to spend a ton of time counteracting all the years of damage, right?
It's just you and Shakira focusing on the hips.
The hips don't lie, man. So that was off season 3. I think I got to a point where I realized that it was going to be another year of part of this golf journey too was that I was in a way running away from music. I had gotten to a point where I was so jaded and it was so brutal for me that I was running away from music. And I think what sucked is that there were many times throughout this process where I thought I was a lot further along and that I could finally free myself from music and just do golf. And then I would hit these walls and go, oh, I'm not there yet, which sucked. But at the same time, what helped was that I would also get huge mental gains and perspective gains from doing this journey that I think has made the mental side of all this way better. Because I was an absolute head case when I started. And I feel like that has become significantly better, both in life and on the golf course. And I'd say I'm to the point where I'm so calm now when it comes to golf. It's so different. So that's been a great thing. But last year, yeah, like I even got to the point where I basically gave up social media for 6 months just to grind because I knew I wasn't there yet. I wasn't going to be playing tournaments. And I think with content, and this is another, what I'm hoping for in this podcast, it's a lot easier for me to make a podcast than it is to make a video because I'm not a videographer by trade, right? So podcasts are, audio is what I do. Golf influencers are media entities, right? They're not golfers and then, they showcase their journey. They're media companies. And so one of the things I noticed and what freaked me out was that I didn't want the media company side to get into the way of the improvement. And so I've always prioritized grinding over making videos and making content. So I took a 6 month content break entirely and didn't post anything on any social media platform. Actually, didn't even log into my social media platforms just to see if I could accelerate the learning curve because I realized I was still very much behind with the swing.
Yeah, I think, and I remember those times, and I would say, you were super diligent because I would send you a video like, check this out. You'd be like, no, I'm not going to look at it. And I think, that's probably the best thing you could have done for your swing and for your own career, like the growth that happened during that time period. So that brings us to today. What's the objective this winter? I think what's the plan for 2023 and going into 2024 now?
Yeah, so this is the kickoff to Offseason 4. Normally I do a YouTube video, but this podcast is the kickoff to Offseason 4, which is kind of Offseason 4 has kind of been underway already. But what happens during the off seasons really is that my work actually gets a little quieter, a little bit in the winter months. Not a lot of music gets made right now, and even in January, it's slow. There's a bit of fatigue from Christmas. Artists and labels don't have a ton of money. And so it doesn't really pick up again until later. So I have this window where I can basically go full golf insane mode. And that's where we are right now. And especially knock on wood, we are not, there's no snow right now in BC. The past 2 years, there's been snow this week. And so then I have to alter my plans. But I've been on the course basically every day, rain or shine, which is unreal. I think with Offseason 4, the big difference is that I finally have viable technique. And my coach can even attest to this. And, you've seen it, and you've seen the swing. The day-to-day volatility is so much better. I think that, when talking about before, there was that 10 handicap that still lived inside of me. I think that I finally killed that person. It's gone. And
viable technique, and I would say, if I can just interrupt you, this is the first time since I've known you when you've actually had equipment piece. And we'll get into equipment in a later episode, but you where you are with your equipment and your bag, you've got this moment of zen and you're content, which is really good to see.
Well, I finally found the alignment of tools and technique for me. And us battle testing that, and we're going to do a whole What's in the Bag episode going through both Dave and I's psychosis in this field. But because there's so much out there, and I think the YouTube golf world is very gear hungry and gear focused. And when you don't know, the gains that working out and technique and some of these things are going to offer you, and also when you're down to put in those reps, it changes your perspective on it. Because there is gear that can be a bit of a Band-Aid, and then there's, you taking ownership and then finding the pieces that work together. And what's finally nice is that you're right. Like this, what's in the bag now is the most peaceful, to the point where like I don't even look at other products. I don't care about anyone else's reviews of anything. I'm not looking. There's nothing in the back of my head that's like, oh, let me just see if that's available on Marketplace. Yeah. So for Offseason 4, it's very much like becoming elite with the raw, like just fine tuning the skills to become elite. Watching my coach play, and I went to the Canadian Open 2 years ago and got to watch those pros play, and it was amazing. Like Scotty Scheffler was there, Sam Burns, like all these great players, and I got to just see their shots live, and the image of that the flight and how they approach things has been kind of burned into my brain, and I've been trying to reverse engineer that for myself, because I know what level is required of me. And so I've just been working on the technique and working on my body and getting the skills together to be able to replicate those shots that are going to be required of me in competition. And like one big thing I've been working on, and I played 2 events this year and just basically blew up score-wise. But the point of it was to be able to swing full tilt and not care. Right, eliminating some fear and also committing to the swings, right? Not just bunting it around and being afraid. So building in, being able to swing my swing in any situation. I feel like I can do that finally now, which is great because it's taken a long time to get to there. Working a ton on the short game and wedge finesse game. So basically, from 110 yards to, whatever distance it is from the tee, to driver, I feel very comfortable, but 110 and less, those shots are scary. And I end up with a lot of those because of my driver distance. So how do I take advantage of those opportunities? Historically, I've really suffered at when I drive it well, but then you give me an 85-yard wedge shot, that is way more terrifying than having to carry, 285 force carry. And I've been working on a lot.
And is that the area of your game this winter? Like, where do you think the next improvement comes from? Is it the short game wedge shot? Is it on the green? Is it putting? Is it chipping, pitching? It's all three.
It's very much the wedges. I fixed a lot of the putting last year with Rich from Genuine Golf, who we did a Quintic thing with the putting, and I have these videos on my YouTube channel. And once we did the Quintic with the putting, it's pretty much been solid. And if things get out of whack, it's normally because there's an issue with my setup. But I know I finally have a home base with a putting technique that I know. And I think once I find that piece, it's almost like it flips a switch in my brain and I go, okay, that's done. That's parked. I can move on to something else. And I realized once I got the full swing to a point where the full swing's cooking, I realized, okay, wait a second. Now that that's done, I realize I need to work on this other motion, because the pitching and chipping motion is such a different motion from the full swing. And what makes me good at my full swing and having all this speed is useless with wedges. And speed, sure. And that was the thing, in off-season 2, my ball speed was the highest it's ever been, but I had zero finesse to take advantage of it. So I'm working a ton on that now, and that's also helped with some of the changes to what's in the bag. I have a wedge setup that I'm very confident in now too. I have bounces that work for me. I have lie angles that work for me. So my technique and my tools have come into alignment, and I feel like this is the most control I've had with that area.
Nice.
Yeah.
I feel like we're teasing a lot about your bag. I feel like the next podcast, we're going to need to go right into equipment. What's in Gabe's bag here?
Yeah. Episode 2 is for sure what's in the bag. That is a must. Yeah. And we'll go through your saga as well. You might need your own episode.
Yeah. I might change between now and the time that we film that episode. You know me, so.
No, nothing is ever safe in your bag.
The driver is safe right now.
The driver's safe right now, Dave. We're about to enter silly season with the driver. They've already got I know somebody testing the new Callaway driver tomorrow. So you're telling me the driver's safe? I know for a fact the driver's not safe for you. And you know how I know that for a fact the driver's not safe with you is because the G430 Max 10K has not hit retail yet.
That's true.
And when that hits retail,
I do like me a ping driver, but I have to
that's what I'm saying.
I am enjoying my paradigm right now.
Yeah, but you're telling me that paradigm is safe?
I do like proving you wrong though. So I may just have to so I'm also stubborn. So
I don't buy it for a second. But it's okay. That's again, we will see.
It's okay. I'll have 15 more putters between now and then. So we'll
sure.
just talk about the putters.
You know what makes me sick though is you putt great with all of them. You never change a putter because you putt poorly.
Yeah, but I don't putt poorly, but I don't putt excellently.
Yeah, but you putt like decently very good.
I know. Well,
you never not putt well. You just putt maybe slightly less than really good. Or really good.
Right.
It's never horrific.
So you're saying the putter's not my problem, and I should probably look at another part of my game.
No, you just really like putters. That's the thing. You'll still swap the putter.
Yes.
That's what's fun. That's what's crazy is you don't actually like swap putters based on performance.
I don't think we've actually talked about. There is probably a new putter in the bag since you and I have last chatted. What is your interpretation of my putter right now? Do you remember what it is?
I think you had the monoblock, and then you went to the PXG.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say. Then went to
but
the
I
PXG,
know the PXG's. I know the PXG's gone.
The Bat Attack. The Bat Attack's a good putter. It's sitting there in the corner. It's ready to return.
But I know it's gone. And then I know you went to San Diego, and I know what's in San Diego.
There is the Scotty Cameron store in San Diego.
So you being in proximity to the Scotty Cameron store is always a cause for concern. If I'm the putter in your bag, and I know you're going to San Diego, I know even if I am a Scotty, I still feel threatened.
Yes. I will admit I took a plane ride to San Diego with the purpose of playing 3 rounds of golf and did not bring a putter because I knew I was landing and driving directly to the Scotty Cameron store in Encinitas, the Scotty Cameron Gallery.
See, I knew it.
And buying a putter.
I knew it. There you go. Okay, see, this is what I'm saying. We need a whole episode on your putter. Fair enough. But yeah, so
anyway, we should move on. My putting is boring for the listeners. So we've been at this for a while. What if you had to summarize what people can expect from the Gabe Gallucci Golf Show podcast? You know, what are they going to get here if they tune in and listen to us on a regular basis?
I think you're going to get a raw insight as to what going through actual improvement is. Because I dedicate an absurd amount of time to getting better. And I'm very dedicated and committed to becoming the best golfer I can be. And my hope is to be able to play in professional tournaments. And I'm going to continue to do everything in my power every day to do that. And I want to give a more raw, unfiltered version of what's happening in more real time and be able to kind of explain it. I think there are certain nuances to improvement. And you and I have these conversations all the time of, even today as an example, right? Through working on all the wedge stuff, I lost a bit of my full swing feel. And all of a sudden my full swing went a little sideways. My full swing has been amazing for about a month right now. So this is the first time I've had that level of consistency. And all of a sudden, I start to lose a bit of that full swing. Well, what's happening? Well, I realized that the range, because it's two completely different motions, right? I'm taking my wedges a little more inside and wide because I'm trying to sweep it. I'm trying to be wide and really sweep it, and I'm leaning on my left side hard and whatever. But then if I do that with my full swing, I got to take my full swing way more, like still wide, but way more upright.
Right.
But if I don't do that, all of a sudden my face control and my direction starts to get squirrely, right? And my feet start reacting differently because I'm putting my body in different positions and I'm pushing different ways, and all of a sudden it just starts to go off kilter. So it's the nuances of trying to keep it all in check, because I think, and we can all relate to this, like, I hear so many times from people when they're playing golf and they go, I don't know what the fuck is going on, right? And my hope is to help people kind of sort through that madness and go, wait a second, it's going sideways because of this. And I think I've learned a lot over the past 4 years of how to self-diagnose when things go sideways. In the beginning, I would call you and go, I don't know, Dave, I don't know what the fuck is happening. Because I'd be like, I played lights out yesterday, and all of a sudden I just topped it on the second hole of this tournament. How does this happen, right? Well, it's happening because my weight shift, and I'm keeping my body back, and all of a sudden, or I'm closing the face and being, an idiot and not knowing.
Yeah.
And once you start to know, the knowledge is freedom. And the freedom of that allows you to play better. It makes your mental game better. It allows you to also not get so wrapped up in one bad shot.
You have built a much more repeatable swing over the last 4 years.
Right. But a lot of that is that knowledge is power. And so I want to be able to show how we can self-diagnose, take you guys through the different things we've gone through, because you also are repeatable without putting in the same level of grind for your type of golf. For like straight up want to be a really good amateur, you have found a sauce to manage that game without being full golf cocaine mode like me.
Yeah, thanks. I bunt it around and keep it in play. I would say that was, if someone said describe my game, it's short and straight, but
very
it
straight.
helps score.
Absurdly straight with the driver. But sorry, back to what people can expect. So I think one of them is a raw, unfiltered version of like what progress actually is and how to kind of reverse engineer and what actually moves the needle. Because there's a lot of crap out there. There's a lot of stuff. Like there's so many coaches on Instagram. Some are good, some are trash. And there's a lot of knowledge to be gained. And also understanding how to interpret that knowledge for your game. There are a lot of things that work for different players that don't work for me, and vice versa, right? And so learning how to see somebody's tip and go, wait a second, that was going to throw off my chain, right? Because golf is whack-a-mole, right? You fix one thing and another thing pops up. So you have to make sure all your matchups all make sense. So that's a big piece. The other thing, obviously, is going to be how gear integrates with that, how technique integrates with that. And then also, too, we're going to cover some just topics, like, are we rolling the golf ball back?
Well, you saw the USGA statement today. Apparently we are.
Oh, man. Do you know that the average elite male is going to lose 11 yards? And the average amateur male is going to lose, I think, like 3 to 5 yards is what they're saying.
Yeah. I think someone at my swing speed, they said 100 miles an hour, we can expect to lose 5 yards, 5 to 7.
What do you think?
Driver.
What do you think of the rollback?
I don't know if we've read enough about it yet. I mean, my initial response is this isn't needed. Like, this is not the place to go. Capping the ball where it is now is one thing. I think that's what we did. When we put the core restrictions in, right? We said, okay, right, you can't go past 0.83. That's where the majority of drivers were. Rolling things back, I don't know. I mean, I played last month. I mean, I haven't played this month yet, but I played last month. Trust me, I shot a 79. The course was plenty long enough. Like, it was a struggle. I had some hybrids into some par fours, so I definitely, it's not an issue, I don't think, for the majority of golfers.
What yardage did you play from? 6,500?
68.
Right. That's in warm conditions, is rolling, which is good.
Yeah.
I've never come across anybody that hit it too far.
No. And I think there is, I understand the argument where the elite players are playing courses that can no longer play. Some of these old school courses on the PGA Tour that we all love and we grew up watching, Baltusrol even, right? It's not long enough now. I get that argument. But in the same breath, I think, a golf ball rollback that applies to all golfers. And, the amateurs are really like, we're the number of people that are playing the game, right? Not the professionals. You've got 250 elite pros in the world. And then how many tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of golfers are in the world? It's, it feels like you're making a rule for, the 0.1% that's going to hurt everyone else. And I'm just not sure it's the right thing for the game.
Yeah, I can see on like a macro level, I'm with you on that. Although I'm like kind of sneaky pro rollback now. And it's like a bit of it's selfish, but a bit of it is kind of like, thinking, because so whenever I've come back to BC for the winter, right? Mm-hmm. Like, because I'm playing through the winter, like the temperature, like we're playing in like 1 degree, 2 degrees Celsius sometimes. Yeah. So I've played through a rollback naturally because I'm losing probably the same amount of distance, maybe more, just simply based on conditions. And so I've noticed that the better my body is able to move and swing, and like this winter so far is the least amount of distance I've lost between summer to winter conditions. Yep. Now I'm obviously still losing some, but because I've gained speed and gained better technique, so my thinking is like, well, now if you're somebody that already has speed and you're like this is just going to make the divide between athletes and not athletes bigger. And I think if you're somebody that prioritizes the working out and you're like, yeah. I'm not talking about the general golfer, because I think the general golfer, the weekend warrior, like this is horrific. You're not going to like this, because I've yet to meet an average golfer that didn't need more distance, and more distance is better scoring, all of that. Right.
Yeah.
But for me, trying to like play more elite golf, I think, I'm going to go from having a sand wedge to a wedge or a 9-iron. Like I'm okay with that.
And not even probably on the short irons, right? Like I don't know, when you get below a 7-iron, I'm not sure how much they were saying this.
But I'm saying off the driver, right? If they're gonna roll back my driver, 10% or 5%.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Right.
One more club into the green. Yeah.
Right. So I'm not. It's not hurting me. But if you're going from an 8-iron to a 6-iron, that's different.
The one thing I would say, and you and I have talked about this a bunch, is that the average amateur probably suffers from not enough height and not enough spin. And we've talked even in your game about, getting more spin on the irons in your game. So going back to a spinnier golf ball that launches higher, I think, especially for some really, really slow swing speed players, because how many, swing speed, like you've got people with a 93 mile an hour swing speed or an 85, 87 mile an hour swing speed, and they're out there playing a Pro V1 or Pro V1X, right? Probably as much as Titleist, we love Titleist. I play Titleist golf ball. As much as Titleist would tell us Pro V1s for everyone, it's not. And, the majority of those players at, say, sub 95 miles an hour need more spin, they need more height. So there may be some hidden benefits.
You know what? And you're right. And the other thing too, right, is everyone pushing fitting and all this stuff right now. Everyone's trying to milk the lowest spin possible they can to get more distance for those golfers. Right? Like that's why they're jacking the lofts. And, some of these irons, like, that's why you get these crazy random flyers, because you hit one out the middle and you drop, you take the spin off of it and it's knuckling on you. And you have a 7-iron that's knuckling. It's like, how did that happen? Yeah. Right? So that's another problem industry-wise. Actually, that'll be interesting to see, because maybe if we're not so distance-focused with the gear and more distance, like this is going to force anybody who has speed. You're just going to have to swing faster. Like you have to swing faster in order to get more distance.
Yeah. Or, spin can be your friend. I wonder, like for someone like yourself, are you going to want to swing faster, Or are you now going to want to focus on, like, if you're not carrying the ball 305, but you're carrying the ball 295, you've now got more spin on your golf ball. Does it create more shot shaping? So is your focus now, like, are you going to swing faster and blast it? Or are you going to be focused more on, okay, I'm going to draw this off the tee. I'm going to fade this off the tee. Because I think the game, if you read what the USGA has tried to do here with the RNA, is
Right.
they're trying to prevent the bombers, right?
Totally.
Like they hit it far, hit it straight. Who cares where it goes? Go find the ball and whack it again, right? Like, the old Vijay Singh thing, right? When he used to say it doesn't matter where he hit it because he'd have a wedge out of the rough, right? That's kind of what we're trying to get away from and back to shot shaping.
So I think an interesting case study I've kind of been doing on this is like where I practice in the winters is Cultus Lake Golf Club. They use flight reduced golf balls. Like they use I'm actually curious to see how close the golf balls they use, because it's for top tracer, and like the net on their driving range only goes to like 250 yards. So they have flight controlled golf balls to limit, balls flying over. But I have learned how to hit that ball and shape that ball, but also with the driver specifically, I know how to like launch that ball probably better than most people I ever see at that range, because I see guys hitting it low and they can't get it over that back fence, right? But there's a way to, increase your angle of attack, swing really fast, and you can send it, and you can get that ball to fly pretty far. So I think like from the off the tee perspective, I think speed is going to be king. It's like Tiger, right? Tiger in '97. He was so fast. He was like long drive fast, right? Yeah. So I think if you can have that ability and make that a skill, and I think that'll actually become more of a skill, swinging it at 124, 125 and being like an athlete, and then having a spin of your ball to control it and hit those shots, that'll be a lot of fun. Because I do agree, like I've always loved playing a Bridgestone BXS because I like the extra spin. I like what it does. But then if I'm, I like what a left dash does for me off the driver. So if I'm forced into a box where I have to play a spinnier ball, well, that's fine. I really like it with all the irons, and then I'll just, I'll figure a way to get my driver to work to match that. But we'll see. It's very contentious. I also think that the architecture guys are like getting too much say in this. Like, golf gets a bad rap sometimes of being a bit elitist. And I think the people that are making this decision is so that the 0.1% of golf courses that the majority of people will never get to play can hold USGA events again. And I don't know if that's a good, because like, again, I play a lot of rounds at like a par 3 executive course out here. I do not see anybody needing less distance or less finesse. Like, I don't know. I just don't see the state of the game requiring this move with the amount of rounds I've played over the past 4 years, with seeing the different types of golfers.
Well, and keep in mind, the interesting thing for me, I mean, this rule's not supposed to take effect till 2028, so we have some time. And it's still a proposed rule. But the rule as it's presented now, this is coming from the USGA and the RNA. There's nothing that says that the PGA Tour and LIV need to have followed this rule. So we've always had this lockstep where the professional tours have, followed the rules of golf as laid out by the USGA. But there's nothing to say the PGA Tour is going to necessarily adopt it, nor do they have to.
But if two of the majors do it, and I think Augusta would want the rolled back ball, because I think it also helps, like, how much money do they have to spend every year making adjustments to the course? They're constantly moving tee boxes, and right? So potentially, 3 of the majors move to it? That puts a squeeze on everybody, right?
It does. I just, think of when this was presented back in March as a local area rule just for the pros. What did Liv and the PGA Tour come out and say? The first thing the two tours says that
they
we're
wouldn't want
not gonna adopt
bifurcation.
it. Yeah.
Nobody wants bifurcation.
So
I think they should shrink the driver head for the pros and then leave the ball. Make us play make elite players play a 300cc driver or a 350cc driver, whatever it is. Like, whatever the burner mini driver is.
put a premium on ball striking.
Yeah, just shrink the driver head. And then if you want to swing that driver head at 125, knock yourself out.
Yep.
Right? Like, I don't know. I think that's a potentially better option than rolling the ball back. But if you're going to roll the ball back, then no problem. I'm going to spend the next 4 years of my life becoming the best athlete possible to take advantage of that when it comes into play, so that when people start but you're going to see, I don't know, like you got guys like Gordon Sargent and like you see Ludwig and these new guys coming up. Sargent is 190 ball speed right now. So what, he's going to drop to whatever ball speed. He's still going to he's going to be a mutant out there. Like he's going to crush that.
Yeah.
Like, Minwoo Lee. Lee was hitting like 190 mile per hour ball speed. But Ryan Hawley did post something today. I think it was something like the majority of all winners on the PGA Tour this year were like less than 176 ball speed.
I'm not. So you wonder if anything though, the rule's just going to make it the pro tour level is going to bring all the pros like closer together.
Yeah, let me see if he has it. Yeah, more than half of the events in the PGA Tour in 2022, 2023 were won by players averaging less than 176.5 miles per hour ball speed.
Interesting.
So now I did listen on a podcast with Sean Foley. He was on No Laying Up, and he was saying one of the bigger differentiators in elite players was actually the long game with the irons. So guys who can hit, 180 to 225 yards, I think it was like around there. Like the longer and Tiger was an absolute, like incredible with the long irons, right? So I think so maybe it brings some of that skill. Maybe that becomes the bigger differentiator, right? It's not actually off the tee. It's can you hit a 4-iron into a par 4 with the right amount of height? Because that's been a big thing I've worked on over the past couple of years, is being able to hit a 4-iron high. There's a premium on that, right?
Yeah, hitting it high and stopping it on a green.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm like sneaky pro rollback, but then for the people, I'm anti rollback.
Yeah.
Kind of eat my.
Us regular folk like myself.
Well, and then what do you do marketing wise? Every year they how does this? Because golf marketing is entirely based on distance.
Well, golf marketing is entirely based on what do the pros play. So like you're marketed like Rory McIlroy plays this driver, you should play this driver. Brooks Koepka plays this iron. Right. You want to play the Brooks Koepka iron. So when the pros start playing a different ball, when their equipment starts separating, right? Like how do you, let's say this rule goes through, it's going to be very, very clear that the ball that Tiger Woods plays is not the ball that I can play. I mean, it probably is that way right now anyway. But it's just, I think it causes a problem for the marketers when they start selling equipment.
Yeah, and that's where I think like the OEMs, I don't know. We'll see. Yeah. We'll see. This is a to be further determined. But anyway, well, I think
Gabe, this was great.
I think it's the end of episode 1 there, Dave.
Awesome. Yeah, this was great. Good chat. I'm sure I'll be talking to you over the next few days. We'll chat some more equipment, but looking forward to future pods. Awesome.
Well, everybody, thank you so much for watching episode 1. We hope you enjoyed it. Hope you brought up to speed into what the journey is and the craziness that is my golf game. And I look forward to having you guys along and joining us. And we will talk to you on the next one.